rage, stay in your lane, turn the page, but something woke up deep inside, a stronger voice, a wilder ride. I've paid my dues, I know my worth, I've fallen down, I've had rebirth. Now I'm standing in my truth, not chasing time, I'm choosing me. I've got wisdom in my bones, fire in my soul. This isn't the ending, this is the moment I take control. Life gets better after 40, clearer vision, brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder, unapologetic. I'm just getting started, don't you see? 40's forward, this is my time. The future's finally looking like me.
All right, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at your partner and thought, I love you, but I just don't want to have sex? Or maybe it's not even about sex. Maybe it's, I used to have a drive. You used to feel bold. You used to make decisions faster. You used to walk into a room and feel magnetic. And now you feel flat, blah, tired, but wired. Motivated in your head, but not in your body. Capable, but disconnected. And someone told you, it's just aging, it's menopause, try an antidepressant, have a glass of wine. But no one checked your testosterone. So today we're talking about the most misunderstood hormone in women after the age of 40, and it's not estrogen, it's testosterone. And this conversation might change how you understand yourself. So welcome to 40s Forward. I'm Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, where we stop whispering about hormones and start understanding them. Because this is not bro science. This is not influencer wellness. This is not just push through it. This is physiology. This is nuance. And this is power. Because menopause isn't a decline, it's a biological transition that requires different inputs. And testosterone is one of the most overlooked. So what testosterone actually does in women? So first, let's correct something. Testosterone is not a male hormone. Women produce it in the ovaries, in the adrenal glands, in our peripheral tissue, and it affects a lot. It affects libido. So that's your sex drive. It affects muscle mass. It affects your bone density. It can affect your mood, your motivation, your confidence, your cognitive sharpness, your energy. It also affects nitric oxide production, which we need for sexual function. It can affect orgasm intensity. Yes, I said it, orgasm intensity. So when testosterone declines, women don't just lose libido, they lose initiation, they lose pursuit, desire, competitive edge. So this is not just affecting the bedroom, this can affect your work performance. This can affect your career drive. This can affect your business success. So it also affects your risk tolerance. And it's just not about sex. It's just about all over vitality. So what happens after 40? Well, here's what most women don't realize. Testosterone doesn't fall off a cliff at menopause. It gradually declines starting in the 30s. And so there's something also that's happening around this time in both men and women. And today we're really focusing on the women aspect of things. But in the age of around 30, for both men and women, we're seeing a decline in testosterone. At the same time, we're seeing a decline in muscle. And a lot of times muscle and the testosterone is married because we need testosterone for muscle. We also need strength training to build muscle, and we also need to be ingesting enough protein. So there's a lot of things that are adding to this gradual decline that we're seeing starting in our 30s. But it's really by the time we hit our 40s and 50s that all of a sudden this is where things are starting to show up. So By the time we're in our 40s and 50s, you may have 50% less testosterone than you did in your 20s. And then you add on to the fact that there may be just more stress in your life. We start getting cortisol dysregulation that's going to affect this more, sleep disruption, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation. If someone's been on oral contraceptives, now we're starting to see some of the inflammatory things that happen from the birth control. And we get also, it can affect your gut microbiome, this birth control, and it can affect your vitamin levels. Sometimes we have things like surgical menopause can also affect like this testosterone. So there's a lot of things that are happening. And here's the thing. I'm always going to go back to sex and stress can't coexist. So that means if you are under any kind of stress, and stress in the body presents as either emotional, spiritual, mental stress, or the stress is inflammation from disease, from poor diet, from environmental toxins. So any stressors, and I always include stress and inflammation go together, will suck away the production of your hormones. So because they can't exist at the same time, because you're either in a nice relaxed state or you're in a stress state. And in a relaxed state, our hormones are present. In a stress state, they're not. Because when you're in a stress state, your body is focusing more on survival. And sex hormones aren't really important for survival, though they might feel like it. So we have all these things that are kind of coming to a head in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And now that's going to be adding not just to a low sex drive, but we talk about the neurotransmitter effect of this hormone testosterone affecting our confidence, affecting our motivation, but then also it's going to affect our body composition. Let's say you're gaining weight and you're like, you're working out and you're eating the way you always did. And now all of a sudden you're not seeing those gains that you used to. It could be the testosterone. Now, I also really like to point out that despite all these online easy to get hormone mills, hormones are not the answer. Hormones are your tool in your toolbox, but your body has to be regulated so that tool works right. And that may be looking at what is your stress levels, what are your inflammatory levels, and how can we maximize those and normalize them so that if you are willing to take hormones, or if you want to try to utilize your own hormones better, everything works much better in conjunction with each other. So what is also maybe happening around this time is, let's say you go to your physician, your health practitioner, and because your baseline is a little bit lower in your testosterone, what's happening is they may be checking your labs, and especially if they're checking serum blood labs, they might tell you your labs are normal. But normal is a statistical range. It doesn't mean that it's optimized. It doesn't mean it's individualized. And that may be reflective directly how you feel. So, and sometimes I may be repeating myself in these podcasts, but I think it's so important, especially if this is one of your first ones that you're listening to, understanding that labs, especially blood labs, are just a snapshot in time, meaning that you walked into that laboratory, they took your blood, you walked out, your labs could be completely different. Also, because it is a statistical range, each laboratory has its normal range, meaning like this is the average of what we see from the people that walk into our lab. So there could be areas of the country, there could be different populations where their statistical range may be different. And here's the biggest thing. Your labs might not follow what the laboratory says is normal. This is where your labs may be normal for you or not normal for you, but they might not match up to what the laboratory is seeing. That is why stay tuned. I am developing an app that you'll be able to track your symptoms and your labs and be able to see exactly where you fit in. So stay tuned because we'll be announcing where you can get that app in the beta. We're going to be launching it to a beta group, so a small select group of people that can get first try at that. So stay tuned because I'll be able to let you know where that is. So here's some signs you may be low. So let's get practical. So you may have low testosterone, and a lot of this you can get just by how you're feeling. You don't necessarily need the lab. So you may be low if you have no spontaneous sexual thoughts. You don't like intimacy. You don't initiate intimacy. You may feel disconnected from sensuality. Yeah, I hear a lot of people, and I will honestly admit there was a time in my life when my testosterone was low, and I was thinking, oh God, that's one less thing that I really would like to do. Like, I have so much other things I could do with my time, like not having the sex drive actually worked out because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do that anymore. This is great. But I will tell you, once I got my testosterone fix, it actually gave me a whole new look on not only my creativity, but on my connection and also with confidence. So it wasn't just a sex thing. It was more a vital wellness thing and better performance in work. So also, if you're lifting weights, but you're not building muscle, if you're bruising more easily, that's an interesting one. If your workouts feel harder, if you're mentally foggy, if you just lost that assertiveness, you feel blah, your orgasms feel weaker. So this all isn't vanity. This is your physiology. And no, you are not broken. So here's the controversy. So now let's add the tension. There is currently no FDA-approved testosterone product specifically labeled for women in the United States. That also means that the ones that are commercially available for men, you can't really adjust for women. I've heard of practitioners telling women to cut the patches into like minute pieces and use those patches. It's just not going to get you what you need, and you're just not going to know what it is. So this is really where I do bring in compounded hormones. Now, there is an argument from the traditional based medicine because compounded medicines can vary from batch to batch, from laboratory to laboratory. Yes, they're not standardized. However, it's probably one of the best tools that we have at this point in time until there's something that's better and FDA approved. Same thing, like I said, you can't take a man's like pump or cream and just do like a smaller drop. It's much harder to regulate, and overdoing testosterone is not a good thing. All right. So, but what does this all mean for women? It means that research funding is very limited. So up until now, there's not been a lot of money in research to look at this for women. There are no pharmaceutical incentives to look at this for women, though. Now that menopause is becoming a very popular topic and trending, we may see pharmaceutical companies kind of jumping on the bandwagon. Another clinical nuance that makes it difficult for research for medication specifically for women is the fact that women can get pregnant. And so it makes pharmaceutical companies a little less likely or less happy to do research on women because nobody wants to give a drug to a woman and then, God forbid, she get pregnant and then there are some kind of side effects. It just means, there's always that argument that people are like, oh, this medicine was researched on men and not women, and that's sexist. It's coming from a safety standpoint, and that there's a lot more factors. Plus, in women that are not postmenopausal, we have the cycle. The cycle can affect research. So when they're trying to do research, and I get it, like I understand the frustration with the pharmaceutical companies. I know that there are people out there who think pharmaceutical companies are evil. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, from a scientific standpoint, they are trying to standardize it as much as possible, and men are just easier to standardize. Doesn't mean that it's right, and we definitely need more research on women. But so this makes so now what happens is testosterone therapy is considered off-label in women. Now, this is where, as a holistic, integrative, functional medicine doctor, I really believe in the art of medicine and not always the science. I mean, the science is great and it's wonderful when we have science that back us up, but using things off-label becomes the art of science. And so this can make some providers uncomfortable. And so because of that, there are many women that are left untreated. any kind of innovation, new business, new products, from a business theory standpoint, you always have the people that are the early adopters. They're the ones who are like, okay, let's go. I want to try something new. And, responsibly also look at what the risk benefit ratio is of that. Then what happens is as more people start taking off with that new business, that new product, that new idea, and incorporating it, it takes a while from those early adopters to when it hits mainstream. I mean, if we just look at hormones in general, the big hormone scare in 2001 with the Women's Health Initiative that got reported in the New York Times that claimed that hormones caused cancer and heart disease. And now we're looking back at that study and we realize there were a lot of factors. It was the type of hormones that were used in that study. It was the women that were being studied may have had a higher risk. So that happened in 2001. And there were people that were using hormones, using compounded hormones, using testosterone in women, but those were the early adopters. And now look at how long it's taken for the mainstream to accept hormone usage in general in women. So that testosterone usage, it just may be your practitioner tends to be more that wants to follow the crowd, wants the research behind it, wants more of, maybe they're a little bit more risk averse and they are a little bit more conservative. It doesn't make it wrong. But if you're a patient that wants testosterone and you are a woman, I would say go find somebody who's very comfortable and has experience in using it in women and understands the nuances and is a little bit maybe ahead of the curve. But no, here's the thing also. Testosterone, is it for everyone? No. This is where medicine, and like I said before, becomes an art. So you really have to look at what are the symptoms. We have to look at levels like free versus total testosterone. We have to evaluate the labs in the bigger picture, meaning the labs are not definitive of like, oh, look, this is what your lab is, so this is what you get. We have to take it and interpret it in a whole picture, because also a lab that's a serum lab is going to be completely different than a saliva lab, a dried urine lab, which are some of the other testing that's out there that can give us more intricacies on what's going on with your hormones. My personal opinion is I like the dried urine test. That's one of my favorites because I can also look at cortisol levels and how the cortisol levels are affecting the testosterone. Serum, saliva labs also very good in that the idea is looking more at tissue concentration of testosterone. Now, can I still interpret a blood lab? Yes, I can. A little bit more nuances, a little bit more difficult and not as clear cut. But do I use it? I sure do. And I use it all in conjunction with looking at the whole person. And that's what you want to look at when you're looking for a practitioner. Recently I heard from some patients that were like very frustrated with their gynecologist because their gynecologists weren't giving them testosterone or weren't giving them hormones. And I'm like, we also have to look at what kind of practitioner are we going to. Now, the only analogy I can really make is, let's say you have a foreign car. You have, I'm going to say like a BMW. So you're Mercedes, let's say. And so your car comes from Germany. And so you take it to a general mechanic. So that general mechanic can make sure everything is in general working order. But let's say there's something more going on with that car. Is your general mechanic going to be able to take care of it? Or do you need to go to a specialist? And that's why you see for cars, there are foreign car specialists. So you might actually need to take it to someone who specifically specializes in taking care of Mercedes, taking care of BMWs, maybe even the dealer that is more familiar with the problems that car experiences. And so, also in that analogy, are you paying probably a little bit more money for that specialized care? Yeah, but are you getting to where you need to be quicker? And I've seen people do this. Not that general mechanics are bad, but also we got to realize who we're going to. And sometimes the gynecologist just doesn't have that specific training in that specific area. So when patients are complaining or people complaining about like, oh, the gynecologists don't know what they're doing, they do, but from a general standpoint. When you want to get deeper into more specifics, that's when you need to find somebody that has that experience, who knows more of the intricacies and the knowledge. That's why, like, you come to me for blood pressure. I'm not going to be your blood pressure person because that is not my specialty. That's like your family practice doctor, internal medicine doctor. They're going to do your general care, your wellness. But the more specific you get, that's when you're going to get the answers you need better and faster. So just think about that. So some of the things that we may be looking at are something like free testosterone versus total testosterone, because the free is what's available in the body for the body to see. We can have something called sex hormone binding globulin, and this is a component of the blood where the hormones will bind. So if your total testosterone is high, but your free is low, it could be because you have a lot of sex hormone binding globulin that's holding on to some of that hormone, and you're not seeing it the way it needs to be. We also need to be looking at your estradiol status, your estrogen status, because testosterone will convert into estrogen. So you could have good levels of testosterone, but is it converting into estrogen? Or how's your thyroid? Thyroid hormones can affect all levels of estrogen and testosterone. And like I said before, cortisol, big influence on hormone levels, because too much stress, too much inflammation over a long period of time will basically suck away those resources to make into your sex hormones. So even if we give you hormones, they might not be utilized in the proper way, and they may be converted into stress hormones. Now, we also need to look at what is your cardiovascular risk? What is your personal and family history? What are your lifestyle risks? Like, what are you eating? What are you drinking? How much are you sleeping? How much and what kind of exercise are you doing? Because even if you're doing something good, too much of a good thing can become a stressor. So there's so many little nuances to the hormones and prescribing people hormones that work successfully in their body. It's not just throwing hormones at the problem. It's not just, hey, let me put my information in online and get a prescription sent to me. Because I can tell you, if it works, great, good for you. But for the people it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that the hormones didn't work for you. It means that your body wasn't optimized to be able to use those hormones the way they needed to be used. And there's ways around that. So also, this is just not like, here, let me put a pellet in, see you in 3 to 6 months. So a lot of what needs to be done with hormones has to be measured, has to be intentional, has to be personalized. And so this is, what are the benefits when it's done well? So when it's done well and we've optimized your body to be able to use those hormones in the way it needs. So when testosterone is optimized appropriately in women, they often will report return of sexual desire, improvement in orgasm quality, increased muscle tone, improvement in insulin sensitivity, sharper thinking, reduced anxiety. So how many people in their menopause, perimenopause period are getting thrown anti-anxiety meds or put on antidepressants? It may not be an anxiety and depression may just be a symptom of a larger problem that's going on. These women will have greater resilience and more decisive leadership energy. So anybody who is in a leadership executive position, first of all, number one, you tend to be under a lot higher stress. And so you tend to have lower testosterone and hormones because of the way that stress is affecting you, making it difficult to do your day-to-day job. So this is where optimizing the body for using testosterone can help with work. And so here also is the part that no one ever talks about. They feel like themselves again. Not a 20-year-old version. Because remember, they're still aging. There's still maybe joint aches and pains. And, we look in the mirror, we're going to look a little bit different. But there is a new, powerful, evolved version that comes out. And a lot of people report that not only are they feeling like themselves again, but they're once again feeling like a better version of themselves. So what are the risks and the real talk about testosterone? So let's not romanticize this. So potential side effects that can happen, because remember, everything we do, there is always in life and in wellness and health, there's always a risk. So potential side effects can be acne. They can be hair growth. So we can end up with hair where we don't want hair. This may be a mustache. This may be a beard. This may be, more eyebrow hairs that need to be taken care of. But at the opposite side, you can have hair loss. So hair on the head might now start falling out. So you may be growing a mustache and becoming bald. Now, there's still things that can be done about this. Doesn't mean you're going to take testosterone. Things are going to happen, but it can. We can also see some voice changes. This is rare, but possible. We can have shifts in lipids, meaning like your cholesterol, your body fats in your body. So we need to be watching and following cholesterol and its effect on cholesterol. There could be some shifts in your blood counts, and that needs to be looked at. So especially something called hematocrit. So how thick the blood is, or how many cells are in the blood. Mood shifts. So too much testosterone can present as anger, irritability, low patience. There's something called polycythemia. Once again, that would be with the blood. So this all requires monitoring. It requires a partnership. It also requires a provider who understands female physiology and how to look at this. So this is not a cookie cutter protocol. And so we need to be understanding everything that goes together. So here's what I want you to take away. So if you feel flat, if your drive is gone, if your libido has disappeared, your confidence has dimmed, it may not be your marriage, it may not be your ambition, it may not be burnout, it may be hormonal physiology. And this is addressable. So you deserve pleasure, strength, mental sharpness, desire, drive. Because after 40s, it is not a decline. This is a recalibration. And now here's the other thing. I've been seeing on social media this argument between, we did not evolve to be doing hormone replacement. Some of the argument is we probably didn't evolve to live as long as we do now. But this is a decision. This is a personal decision. So if you feel like hormones are good for you and you want to go down that route, that is an option. That is your freedom to choose. If you're like, I want to, age naturally, that is wonderful. Some of the things that you can do to naturally raise testosterone is get enough sleep, lower your stress, exercise, especially exercise in the morning and for no more than 30 to 45 minutes at a time, because studies have shown too intense of an exercise or too long of an exercise can actually worsen your stress hormones and suck away those sex hormones. So there are natural ways. Increasing your zinc, and that can be done either through supplementation or can be done through foods such as nuts, salmon, and so seeds. They are very high in zinc. Oysters, these are some high zinc things that can also add to testosterone. So the thing is that this is beautiful because it is a personal decision and you have the choice to either choose hormones or not. And so when women understand that this is an option, they don't have to suffer and they can stop apologizing for their needs, because it is your time and you deserve to feel the best that you can feel. So if this episode resonated with you, share it, send it to a friend, start the conversation, because when women speak honestly about hormones, other women benefit. And we can stop whispering about vitality, sex drive, libido, confidence, because we own it. This is 40s Forward, and we're not aging quietly. This is your new reinvention. And stick around. Make sure you follow us, like, tag, share, do whatever you need to do.
Life gets better after 40, clearer, vision brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder, unapologetic. I'm just getting started, don't you see? 40s forward, this is my time. The future's finally looking like me. to prove. This is power, this is freedom, this is living fully you. Life gets better after 40. This is where I rise and shine. 40's forward, full of purpose. I'm stepping into my prime.